Good morning, dear students. A warm welcome to all of you for our today's digital session for the subject Science and Technology Section B. In our previous session, we have revised about how expression takes place in human beings for chapter number 15, Life Processes in Living Organisms. We had also started with a new life process, coordination, and for coordination, how it takes place in plants was seen last time. Today, we will see how coordination occurs in human beings. It is a lengthy process, so we are going to divide it in parts and we will study. So as usual, in the first 5 minutes, let us revise about the previous topics. We will see how coordination takes place in plants and then we will move towards human beings. Coordination in plants. I had told you, coordination is very necessary for any activity to take place smoothly, whether it is for living organisms or for any activity in your day-to-day life related to school, college if you go ahead, or business levels. So everywhere coordination. What is this coordination? So the proper, you can say, linking of the different organisms or the different activities or the people which are involved in that particular activities at proper levels and carrying out that activity in a very specific manner is called coordination. So if coordination is proper, then only activity can take place very effectively. So coordination in plants, you were worried last time how coordination can occur in plants, because when you speak or hear about the term coordination, you only think that it is related to speech. Coordination means talking. It is not so. Plants, they do not have systems. They do not have the nervous system or the muscular system which is present in animals. But how does this coordination occur in plants? Here in plants, movements are mainly in the form of responses which are given to stimuli. And the different types of movement we have seen. Generally speaking about movement in plants, it is called as tropism or tropic movement. Movement or growth of any part of the plant in response to an external stimulus is called tropism or tropic movement. And the different movements which are showing a part of coordination in plants are: the first is phototropic movement, photo related to light. You know that plants usually they grow towards the rays of light, in the path of light. So the shoot system of any plant, it responds to the light stimulus, that is the growth towards the source of light, and such movements which is shown by plants towards the source of light is called phototropic movement. Next, gravitropic movement related to gravitation. So the roots of the plants, they are in relation with the soil, the source of gravity, the place of gravity. So the root system of the plants, they respond to stimuli like gravitation, which is called as gravitropic movement, and also respond to source of water, which is called as hydrotropic movement. Next is chemotropic movement. Here, movement which is shown by plants in response to specific chemicals is called chemotropic movement. For example, growth of the pollen tube towards this is the pollen tube towards the ovary or the ovule. Now, all these movements which we have seen here, they are related with growth, and hence all such movements are called as growth relevant movements, because they are related with growth and important life process. Then some of the movements which are exhibited by plants but which are not related to the plant's growth, they are called as growth irrelevant movements. Some examples we had taken: the touch me not or the mimosa plant, whose leaves immediately droop down as soon as you touch them. Venus fly trap plant. Here you have seen that there is a trap that appears and smells like flowers and deceives the insects. When an insect visits, you can see the picture of insect over here. It visits that flower like trap. The trap immediately closes up and the trapped insect is digested, eaten up by the plant. Lotus flower. It opens during the daytime, while that of the tuberose, which you have seen, opens at the night time. So these are the different examples. Here also you can see the movement. The trap, it closes up, or the leaves, they close on touching. So all such specific movements, they do not lead to plants growth. Here these movements are not linked to the growth, and hence such movements are called as growth irrelevant movements, the movements which are not related to growth. Up till this we had studied last time. Now we come to the important life process to see how coordination, this life process, takes place in human beings. Which are the different organs or which are the different systems which play a vital role over here? Coordination in human being. Here, different processes, if you see, they go on simultaneously working inside the human body. All this process, they need to be efficiently and effectively controlled and coordinated. Otherwise, you know what will be the position of your body. And this entire work is done efficiently with the help of two systems, which is known as the nervous control and the chemical control. So coordination in human beings is brought about properly by the efficient working of both the systems, that is the nervous control and the chemical control, which we are going to study in details. Both the systems we are going to study in details. The first one is A, nervous control. Now nervous control, when you have to speak about, human beings, they can respond to changes in their surroundings due to this nervous control. Impulses are generated in the human body in this accordance with the changes in the surroundings. You have a well equipped brain. Unlike plants or animals, it is not as such that we do not have something to think. We have a brain. So impulses which are generated in the human body, they can show the changes, and this nervous control here, it plays an important role. Here what important role is played? Of empowering the body cells with ability to respond to these impulses which are generated. And this ability, it depends upon the complexity of the organization in the organism's body structure. Now, there are different animals of different cells. If you speak about unicellular animals like amoeba, they do not have a nervous system which produces such impulses, such responses. However, when you speak about multicellular animals like human beings, they have a nervous system to respond to the stimuli. Just an example I will tell you about the impulses or response to stimuli which we are speaking now. An example is, if by mistake you happen to touch any hot object, there is some hot object placed on the kitchen shelf, and unknowingly you pass away from there and you touch it. Immediately what is your reaction? You take your hand away. Here it is not done knowingly, but somewhere you are showing some response to the changes in the surrounding, and that is controlled by the you can say the first system, that is nervous control. So control and coordination is brought about with the help of a special type of cells called as nerve cells or neurons, whose structure and function we are going to study in details in this chapter. So let us move towards the structure and function of this neuron, and we will see how these neurons or nerve cells, they help to bring about a control and coordination. Here is in front of you the well organized diagram of a nerve cell or a neuron. What are these neurons or nerve cells? How you can define them? A very small definition in science for neurons. These are the special types of cells which conduct impulses from one place to another in the body. Suppose you have decided something and you have to pass on this message to your neighbor or your friend, then some person or some child is allotted for this purpose to pass on this message, and that is nothing but done by this neuron. They do the work of conducting these impulses. Now, neurons, they are the structural and functional units of the nervous system. When you speak about cell is the structural and functional unit of life. Similarly, just now in the beginning we have seen that the control and coordination is brought about by the efficient working of two systems, nervous control and the chemical control. So neurons, they are the structural and functional units of the nervous system. You cannot imagine the nervous system without these neurons. Nerve cells, the largest cells in the human body, they may measure up to few meters in length. They have the ability to generate and conduct electrochemical impulses, and the cells that support the nerve cells and help in their functioning are called neuroglia. Nerve cells and neuroglial cells together, they form the nerves. Now you can see here this neuron, it is divided into three parts. The first end is the dendrites. Then you speak about the cell body, axon and the terminal. So all the information about the surroundings is collected by the ends or the dendrites of the neuron. You have studied last year about the human ear. How human ear is divided in three parts. The outermost part is the pinna, which collects the sound waves from the surroundings. So similarly here, the first part of the neuron, that is the dendrite, it is towards the end. That dendrite is mainly responsible for collecting the information about our surroundings. It is done by the ends or the dendrites. These are the branched structures. You can see here the chemical process, it begins at those ends and electric impulses are generated. They are produced, which are conducted from the dendrites to the cell body. See, now the impulses which are generated at the ends, they are now traveling towards the cell body. Here you can see a nucleus in the center. Now the electric impulses which are conducted from the dendrites to the cell body, then from the cell body to the axon, and from the axon to its end. See the pathway of the movement of impulses. Now these impulses are then transferred from this nerve cell to the next one. Now the impulse that reaches the terminal of an axon, it stimulates the nerve cell to secrete certain chemicals. Now the impulses has reached the terminal. It stimulates the nerve cells to secrete certain chemicals, and these chemicals, they pass through a minute space which is called as synapse, which is between two adjacent neurons. The gap in between two adjacent neurons, the chemicals, they pass through the space, it is called as synapse, and they generate the impulse in the dendrites of the next neuron which is adjacent to it. And in this way, if you see, the impulses, they are conducted in the body, and these impulses are finally conveyed by the nerve cells to the muscle cells or the glands. Here you can see how the impulses which are produced at the ends of the dendrites, they are traveling throughout its cell body, axon, terminal, and how then they are generating the impulses in the next neuron. Now, when an action or movement is to be brought about in the body, the work of the muscular tissue comes last in the sequence, and hence we say that movement of the muscle cells is essential to bring about any activity. When the cells they contract to change their shape, then what happens? Movement it occurs at the cellular level. Listen carefully. When the cells they contract to change their shape, movement occurs at the cellular level, and muscle cells they have the ability to change their shape due to a special type of protein, and besides due to this same proteins, cells they become able to respond to the electrical impulses of the nerves. And thus we can say here, you can see that the nervous system it consists of a well organized network of nerves which can conduct information how in the form of electrical impulses from one part of the body to the other. You can call them as the transport cells. They are transporting the impulses from one part of the body to the other. Now here three types of nerve cells are doing their functions, which we are going to study in details, all the three types. Let us see which are the three types of nerve cells, and they are categorized based on their functions. So according to the function, nerve cells are classified into three types. First is sensory neurons. The word itself tells you sensory. Sensory neurons, they do the work of conducting impulses from the sensory organs to the brain and the spinal cord. Which are the sensory organs? Skin, ear, nose. So from the sensory organ to conduct the impulses to the brain and spinal cord is brought about by the sensory neurons. Next is motor neurons. Motor neurons conduct impulses from the brain or the spinal cord to the effector organs like the muscles or the glands. Look at the functions carefully. And the third one is association. Word itself tells you association neurons. It performs the function of integration in the entire nervous system. So these are the different types of nerve cells or neurons based on their functions. Sensory neurons, motor neurons, association neurons, which you are going to study in details as it can be asked in the exam as a full-fledged 3 marks question. Or it can be asked as an objective. Identify who I am. I conduct impulses from the sensory organs to the brain and the spinal cord. Then you have to identify it is the sensory neurons. This way questions can be asked. Now we are going to study about the human nervous system in details. We have seen how nerves play an important role in this nervous control. Now how this human nervous system is classified, that we are going to see ahead. The human nervous system, if you speak about, it is divided into 3 parts. The first is central nervous system or CNS. Second is peripheral nervous system or PNS. And the third one is autonomic nervous system. So all these 3 systems in details you are going to study in this chapter. So out of these 3 systems, we are going to study about central nervous system in details today. So let us see what the central nervous system is comprised of. The central nervous system or the CNS. Now this central nervous system, it functions like the central government who functions for a nation. You know, for India, we have the state government who works for that particular state, our chief minister, or the state government who is working for the state of Maharashtra. Similarly, we have the central government who gives the main directions or who decides the different functions of the nation. Similarly, for the body, we have the central nervous system and whose main part is the brain. So the central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. I don't have to explain you more about the brain. You know that it is the main organ who controls all the activities of the body. Now the organization of this brain, it is extremely delicate but highly evolved. Now this brain is the main controlling part of the nervous system. I have told you in the beginning, the nervous system and the chemical control, these are the two systems which help in bringing the total coordination of the different activities in human body, and among them the main part is the brain, who works like the principal who works for the school. The principal is the main, you can say, person, the authorized person who gives us different directions and helps in the effective and smooth functioning of the school. So similar is the function of the brain. Now actually this brain, it is safely located in the cranial cavity. So when you happen to touch your head, it is not the actual part of the brain which you are touching. This brain is inside this bony cage which is known as the cranium, and this cranium, it works like a helmet which protects your delicate parts of the brain. The next is your spinal cord. It is protected by the vertebral column. Now in the space between the delicate central nervous system and its bony covering are the protective layers which are called the meninges. Cavities present in the various parts of the brain, they are called as ventricles, whereas the long tubular cavity of the spinal cord is called the central canal. Now this ventricles, central canal and the spaces between the meninges are filled with a cerebrospinal fluid, and this fluid plays a major role, an important role in supplying the necessary nutrients to the central nervous system and also protects it from different shocks. About the brain, about its parts, we are going to study in details now. If you happen to weigh an adult human brain, it weighs about 1300 to 1400 grams, and it consists of about 100 billion of neurons. Just now you have studied about what is a neuron and what is its function. So a human brain, it comprises of about 100 billion of neurons. This human brain is initially divided into two parts, that is the left brain and the right brain, both having their own unique functions to perform. Now it will be surprising for you to hear that the left brain, it controls the right side of your body, and the right brain, it controls the left side of the body. Very amazing but truth, that your left brain controls the right side of the body, whereas the right brain controls the left side of your body. Not only that, each part of this brain has different functions to perform. The left side of your brain, it is associated with analytical thinking, logical thinking, language, science and mathematics. Also, it controls our speech, conversation, writing, etc. Whereas your right side of the brain is associated with holistic thinking, intuition, creativity, art and music. You have seen people around you. All the people are not same in, you can say, their hobbies, or there are some people who really have a command on science. They love science right from their childhood and they are very expert in science. Some people are having a good command in mathematics, calculations, the, you can say, numerical part of their brain. The left side of the brain is highly developed. They can even remember n number of mobile numbers by heart, phone numbers. So here you can say that the left side of the brain is highly evolved. Some people have a good command over language, logical thinking to answer logical questions in a very unique way. Some people, you can see, right from their childhood, they are interested in different types of dances, music, art, they can give some creative effects. So here their right part of the brain is more functional. So now today you came to know that each one's hobby or command, it depends upon the which side of your brain is more effective. Now this human brain, it has three main parts. First is the cerebrum, which is called as the largest part of the brain. You can see this cerebrum, followed by cerebellum, which is the smaller part of the brain. This is the cerebellum. Here you can see. And third one is medulla oblongata, which is the hindmost part of the brain. Now each one we will see in details very quickly. Cerebrum. Why it is the largest part of the brain? Because it occupies 2/3 of the brain. You can see here 2/3 part of the brain is occupied by the cerebrum, and hence it is called as the large brain or the largest part of the brain. It consists of two hemispheres. Cerebrum, it consists of two hemispheres, and these hemispheres, they are joined with each other with the help of tough fibers and nerve tracts. Next, its surface has deep irregular ridges and grooves, which are called as convolutions. You can see here convolutions are clearly seen in the picture. Convolution, it increases the surface area of the cerebrum, and therefore a large number of nerve cells can be accommodated over there. Next is cerebellum, smaller part of the brain situated below the cerebrum at the back of the cranial cavity. Its surface shows shallow grooves instead of deep convolutions. And the third is medulla oblongata, which is the hindmost part of the brain. There are two triangular swollen structures called pyramids on the upper side of the medulla oblongata, and the medulla oblongata, it continues downward as spinal cord. Now, in short, we will quickly see the functions of the different parts of the brain, that is the cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla oblongata and the spinal cord. It is given in your textbook. Cerebrum, what are the functions of the cerebrum? Control of the voluntary movements, concentration, planning, decision making, memory, intelligence and intellectual activities. To take a particular decision, to in concentration, the main part of the brain which is functional is cerebrum. Cerebellum, main function coordination of voluntary movement and maintaining the body's balance. Medulla oblongata, control of the involuntary activities like the beating of the heart, blood circulation, breathing, sneezing, coughing, salivation. These are the different activities upon which you do not have your own control, and these activities are controlled by the medulla oblongata, so a very important role. And the spinal cord, conduction of impulses from the skin towards the brain, conduction of impulses from the brain to the muscles and the glands, functions as a center of coordination of reflex actions. So what is the spinal cord? The spinal cord is the part of the central nervous system and is held within the vertebral column. It is slightly thick but gradually tapers towards its ends. There is a thread-like fibrous structure at its end which is called the phylum terminale. So these are the different, you can say, parts of the central nervous system. We have studied about the brain and we have studied about the spinal cord in details. All these functions of each and every part of the brain you have to learn, because it can be asked as a full-fledged question or in MCQs also. Coordination of the involuntary activities is brought about by dash. Then three options if it is given, you have to identify that involuntary activities means medulla oblongata, or concentration is the activity of the human body controlled by the dash part of the brain. Cerebrum, cerebellum, spinal cord. Then you will say concentration, cerebrum. So if these functions are learnt by you carefully, then only any question you can answer, MCQs or a full-fledged question. Give any three functions of the cerebrum. Give any two functions of the cerebellum. That can be a straight question also over here. With this, we complete with the first part of the human nervous system, that is the central nervous system. Tomorrow, we will study about the next two parts, that is the peripheral nervous system and autonomic nervous system. And towards the end, we will see the next system, or you can say control, that is chemical control. Different hormones which are involved in that also we are going to study in our next session. So till then, I request all of you to at least go through the remaining part of the chapter, read it, and then attend your next session. Thank you, dear children.